Hey there! So we're diving into breastfeeding today, and you've got a ton of info. There are articles, Holly's book. It's great you're really digging into this. We're here to help sort through it all.
It's amazing how much info is out there. Sometimes you just need to know what really matters.
For sure. Especially with something as personal as breastfeeding. Speaking of, we've got these interview excerpts with Holly. She wrote, Breastfeeding, a comprehensive guide for nursing mothers. What struck you about her?
It was how relatable she seemed. 2 kids, breastfed both, but for different lengths of time. 2.5 years with her first and 2 years with her second.
Yeah, I noticed that in your notes, 2 years. That's pretty impressive.
Definitely. And she talks about how her first was, in her words, a high-needs baby needed a ton of attention. That really resonated. Breastfeeding isn't one size fits all.
So true. Every baby's different, every mom is too. But in your research, did any common threads surprise you, good or bad?
Definitely. It's surprising how many women have challenges those first weeks. Even Holly, who's like a breastfeeding expert now, had a tough time at first.
Right. She talks about having a C-section, how that impacted her milk production early on. Had you come across that much?
It'd come up, but I was struck by her honesty about the anxieties. Reassuring for new moms to hear even someone like Holly worried if she'd be able to breastfeed successfully.
That vulnerability makes her advice even stronger. She's not just some expert. She's been there 2 a.m. with a screaming newborn, just like everyone else.
Totally. And despite those struggles, breastfeeding clicked eventually. She even says it got easier than bottle feeding once she got past the initial hurdles.
Interesting you say easier. Your notes mention breastfeeding convenience, which seems kind of counterintuitive.
Right, because we hear about the challenges, the time. But Holly's point is, no sterilizing bottles at night, no diaper bag full of formula. Actually simplified things.
Good point. It's like short-term pain, long-term gain. Put in the work, it pays off in ways you don't expect.
Totally. Speaking of challenges, you highlighted nipple cracks. Lots of women experience it, but it's not talked about enough.
It's like this taboo topic. Holly's openness is refreshing. She even tried laser treatment for them. Never heard of that.
Right. Sounds kind of futuristic,
Yeah.
but shows there are solutions, even for the less glamorous parts of breastfeeding.
Perfect segue to the healing power of breast milk. It's like liquid gold food and medicine.
Fascinating. Holly used it for everything. Diaper rash, cuts, scrapes. And there's science backing up those old remedies too.
Incredible. Any of that research surprise you?
The sheer number of good things in breast milk is what got me. Antibodies, stem cells, growth factors. Remarkable.
Makes you realize it's not just nutrition, it's immune support, healthy development, so much more. And yet, this myth persists. Some women just can't produce enough milk.
Which Holly completely debunks. She believes every mother can. She talks about massage, using a breast pump, electric or manual. Find what works for you.
Because every breastfeeding journey is unique. What works for one might not for another, and that's fine.
Absolutely. And while we're on finding what works,
Yeah.
you wanted to talk about the nursing chair.
Oh yeah. I admit, seeing that in your notes, I chuckled. It's so obvious, but you don't always think about it up front.
Right. Holly started getting back pain from all the awkward positions. Once she got a comfy chair, armrests and all, huge difference.
Like anything else, you need the right tools. That chair can make or break it, physically and mentally.
100%. If you're uncomfortable all the time, it makes those tough early days even tougher. Find a chair that's your sanctuary, even if you get creative, like Holly.
Speaking of creative, you flagged Holly's diet advice. There's so much conflicting info about what you can and can't eat while breastfeeding.
It's overwhelming, right? Holly breaks it down well, though. Avoid alcohol, obviously, but also acidic foods. And semi-raw stuff, like smoked salmon, can upset the baby's stomach.
Makes sense. Those tiny tummies are still adjusting. Anything Holly recommended surprise you?
The coffee thing got me. She says 1 cup a day, max, while breastfeeding.
Oh, I remember clinging to my coffee as a new mom. But also the worry about if it affects the baby. Finding that balance is key.
Exactly. And Holly's big on informed choices, not deprivation. Her babies were fine with most foods, especially what she ate during pregnancy.
That's reassuring. No need for a total diet overhaul. We were talking about balance. You were curious about long-term impacts of breastfeeding, not just for the baby, but the mom too. Breastfeeding and maternal health was in your notes.
Yeah, it's getting more attention, which is good. There are studies suggesting it might help protect moms from some health problems down the line. Breast cancer, ovarian cancer.
Wow. Shows how connected it all is. What we eat, how we take care of ourselves, it ripples outward.
Exactly. Speaking of ripple effects, Holly briefly mentioned how people see breastfeeding, how it's changed over time. Any of that history stand out to you?
You know, it did. It's kind of wild how something as natural as breastfeeding has been so debated, even controversial over the years.
Really makes you think cultural influences, societal stuff, it all shapes how we view motherhood.
You even found some of those old formula ads, right? Positioning it as the modern scientific choice over breastfeeding.
Like, we tried to medicalize something completely natural. Thankfully, things are shifting back. People are realizing the value of breastfeeding for both mom and baby.
Feels like we're more open about it now, which is so needed.
Definitely. And part of that is admitting it's not always easy. No shame in getting support, whether it's a lactation consultant, your partner, a friend. Heck, even a good nursing chair counts.
Love that. Those little comforts make all the difference. Speaking of support, you had a ton of questions about building a breastfeeding support network. Finding your tribe was how you put it.
It's huge. Connecting with other moms, those who are going through it or have been there, those early weeks, months, they can be so isolating if you're alone.
Takes a village, right? And sometimes that village is online. Forums, groups, even just sharing with friends, family online. It helps.
For sure. And what I like about Holly is she's all about trusting your gut. She calls breastfeeding this dance between mom and baby, finding your rhythm.
Beautiful way to put it. Not about perfection, but what works for you too, trusting your own knowledge.
Exactly. And sometimes that means going against the grain, trying things, letting go of expectations, embracing the chaos a little.
Because let's be real, there will be chaos. Spit up, leaky, you know, those middle of the night feedings where you're barely human.
All part of it.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about the whole journey, you were interested in weaning, which is such an emotional stage for both mom and baby.
It is. You go from this intensely physical, emotional connection to slowly separating, getting your body back.
Holly says she weaned gradually, letting her kids guide it. No strict schedules, just responding to their cues.
Makes sense. Every baby's different, no one right way to wean.
Yeah, flexibility, adjusting what you thought would happen, realizing it's okay if it's not a straight line. Setbacks, maybe some tears, but trust your gut. Do what feels right for both of you.
That message of trust, intuition, it's essential. Being present, responsive, kind to ourselves through it all.
Absolutely. Embracing the journey, ups and downs and all. Celebrating that bond that breastfeeding builds. It's incredible.
So well said. Speaking of celebrating, you highlighted normalizing breastfeeding. Not just for moms, babies, but for society. Tell me more.
Shifting the whole narrative, not hiding it, hushing it up. Natural, healthy, embrace that.
Totally. Moms feeling supported to breastfeed wherever, whenever they need to. No judgment, no shame.
Exactly. And that starts with these talks. Sharing our experiences, good, Andy, bad.
Yeah.
Building understanding.
Because knowledge is power, right? The more we know, the better choices we make for ourselves, for our families. You know, it's true, knowledge can really shift things. And speaking of shifting, something else from Holly stuck with me, how breastfeeding might change in the future,
It's a big question, right? Even the last few decades, it's changed so much.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, what'll shape those conversations? The next big discovery, the next thing everyone's talking about.
Maybe it'll be about those moms who have less access to breastfeeding, support different income levels, those things. Or how to help moms who work and want to breastfeed. Or maybe just keeping at it with normalizing it, all the different ways moms do it.
It is exciting to think about. And with people like Holly, so passionate, the future's looking good.
I'd agree with that. It feels like we're going in the right direction. More understanding, more support, celebrating this amazing thing, how moms nourish, how they connect with their babies.
Couldn't have put it better myself. This has been such a great deep dive. I really appreciate you going through all this with me. Even just an interview, you learn so much from other people's journeys.
Absolutely. Reminds us that even with breastfeeding, so much info out there, sometimes it's the personal stories that really hit home.
So true. Well, listeners, I hope this has given you lots to think about, maybe even new questions to explore wherever you are on your own journey. New parent, been there, done that, or just curious about it all.
And hey, wherever you are on that path, you're not alone. There's a whole lot of support out there, people rooting for you every step of the way.
Perfectly said. Huge thanks to Holly for her book, her experiences, and to you, our amazing listeners. Thanks for joining this deep dive into the world of breastfeeding. Until next time, happy learning.